A warm welcome to each of you. I'm really happy you are here. And whether you have joined out of curiosity or a desire to grow, or perhaps from a quiet longing or an ache for change, I want to honor each of your reasons and intentions for being here with us today. Taking time out of your day to reflect on your relationship, it's not a small thing. It speaks to your openness, your heart, and your courage. So, today we are exploring something that many of us learned the hard way, and that is that marriage or partnership, it doesn't grow on autopilot. But it grows when two people keep choosing growth again and again, both individually and together. But where does that growth begin? Well, it starts with a seed, and that seed is love, right? Love is, for most of us, the reason why we want to bond to another. There's a deep desire within us to connect. It is love. So when we say that marriage doesn't thrive on autopilot, but that it thrives when we make the ongoing decision to grow, we can ask ourselves, what is it that we grow? And here I would like to share a slide with you with a quote from the famous 13th century poet, mystic, and theologian Rumi. So let me bring that up for you. Here we go. So it says here, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So this quote from Rumi, it turns our usual idea of love upside down. He's saying love isn't something we need to go out and find. It's already here. But to truly experience it, we have to notice the inner walls we have built, often without realizing it. So we don't need to grow our love. I like to see love like the sun. It's always there, even when hidden behind clouds. So we don't need to grow it, but we want to clear the skies. And today we want to shine a light on how our inner work, how that clears the skies. Because in marriage or in partnership, it's really easy to look at our partner for comfort and for answers, for change. And sometimes that's completely valid. For example, if you feel like your partner hasn't been treating you with respect lately, that matters. And it's something to bring forward to your partner and talk about. But Rumi invites us to also look inward. What if tension or disconnection isn't just a sign that something outside of us is wrong? What if it's a doorway pointing to inner hidden fears or old patterns, for example? And so when we explore those places, and not with blame, but with our mindset of openness and curiosity, that's how we begin to clear the skies. And with that, our capacity to love and to be loved, it grows. So let's take a look at those inner barriers that Rumi talks about. So here are some common inner barriers many of us carry, often silently. So first of all, fear of vulnerability, that instinct to protect ourselves, even from someone we love. And then unresolved pain, old wounds that still shape how much trust we can offer. Self-criticism, that voice that says you are not enough, or maybe you are too much. Control or perfectionism, the pressure to get it all right before we feel safe. And then emotional walls. So things like sarcasm, silence, or pulling away, coping strategies that now block connection. So if any of these feel familiar, please know this. It doesn't mean that you're doing marriage or partnership wrong, because these patterns, they once helped us survive. But if we don't gently unpack them, then they begin to isolate us and disconnect us from our partner. It's like we leave clouds in front of the sun. So we want to meet them with compassion, not criticism. We want to meet them with openness and with curiosity, not shame. Because as these walls, as they begin to soften, it is like the clouds start to disappear and love can shine. So it says here, marriage is a mirror that reflects our courage, our patterns, our pain, and our potential. You know, marriage, it is so beautiful, but it can also be very humbling. It gives us joy and belonging, but it also shows us who we are, our strengths, and also the parts of us that are still healing. And that's why change is so important, because real change in marriage or in partnership, and with that I mean positive change, it doesn't usually come from the big dramatic moments, but it begins quietly in those honest moments when we ask ourselves questions like, who am I becoming in this relationship? And am I helping to create a space that feels safe, alive, meaningful? So these kinds of questions, they aren't always comfortable, but they're very powerful, and they open the door to deeper connection and growth. I love this quote from Rumi. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. So this quote points to a deepening of wisdom, a movement from outer control to inner transformation. You know, it's so easy to think if only my partner would change, things would be so much better. And yet, deep down, we know that lasting change, it begins within. And this is not about blaming ourselves, but it's really about reclaiming our power. It's about becoming aware of how our own reactions, so for example, our tone, our expectations, our moments of withdrawal, how they shape the emotional climate in our relationship. And even small shifts, like showing up with more gentleness, or having an honest conversation, or staying present in discomfort. All these things, they can create powerful ripples of positive change. Marriage and partnership, you know, they hold up a mirror and they reveal where healing and growth, or even just attention, is needed within ourselves and within how we are showing up in our relationship. And when we meet that mirror with openness rather than defensiveness, then transformation becomes possible. Inner work shapes outer connection. When we do our inner work, our outer connection, it deepens. When we're willing to face the clouds and clear the skies, love has space to shine. But let's be honest, when things feel hard, our first instinct is often to want them to change. You know, I love this quote from Louise Hay. Louise Hay, she's often called the mother of spiritual self-help, and she used to say, "Change is something that we like the other person to do." Yet, again, the truth is, real and lasting change, it begins within. It begins here. I heard someone else recently say that most marriages, they don't end because of a lack of love, but because of a loss of connection. And that deeply resonates with me. And I can imagine it might resonate with you too. It's connection that needs our care, and tending to it, it begins by turning on the light within. Inner work is the foundation. But connection, it also thrives through our conscious actions, how we show up and how we choose to show up moment by moment. And that really looks like listening, deep listening. So not just to words, but to emotions underneath as well. And speaking not to win, but to understand. And creating safety, not through control, but through presence. And you know what? I know many of you here today are coaches. And the things that I just listed, they are the very skills that we have cultivated as coaches. So I think this is a beautiful invitation to all of us. Let's bring those same capacities into our relationships. Inner work, it might not be visible, but it's deeply transformative, because what happens within us, it shapes the connection between us. The wound is the place where the light enters you. We all carry wounds, and the older we get, we know we can't avoid being wounded in life. And some of our wounds, they are large and obvious, but others are quiet and hidden. And it's natural for us to want to hide them, to protect ourselves. But Rumi suggests something so beautiful. What if those wounds are not our weaknesses? But what if they are our gateways to deeper connections? In marriage or in partnership, our wounds often get touched, not because our partner is unkind, but because intimacy brings us close, close enough for old wounds to surface. But instead of shutting down or pushing away, what if we stayed open? Just a little. And it might sound like, I'm scared right now, and I don't want to shut you out. Or I don't have the words yet, but something is stirring within me. Letting the light in, it takes courage. But that's how healing and connection begins. So I have some questions for you to reflect on. And I will read them out one by one so you can have a look and see whether they resonate. What do I long to bring into this relationship that I haven't yet? Where might I be withholding, perhaps out of fear or habit or past hurt? How do I tend to respond when I feel unseen or misunderstood? And does that response invite connection or distance? What am I carrying that may be weighing us down? And we can think about old resentments, regrets, or griefs that are ready to be released. And finally, what kind of partner do I most want to be right now in this season of our life? So take a few minutes to let these questions sink in. And you don't need to answer all of them, but just let one or two speak to you. And maybe you write, or maybe you sit in silence, but try to shift from thinking to listening. Listening to the wisdom inside of you. And receiving and welcoming whatever comes into your awareness out of this deep listening. This is not about fixing, but it's really about tuning into what is true for you in this moment. So take that moment. So I hope something came up for you out of this listening. If you're listening to the recording, feel free to pause if you want to linger a little bit more. For now, during the live session, we continue. So becoming an intentional partner, we often think of being in love as something that just happens. But staying in love and deepening love, it is a choice. It is, first of all, about showing up, not with perfection, but with presence. And an intentional partner doesn't try to fix or control the other person. And that doesn't mean that they avoid hard conversations. Of course, they speak up when something needs to be addressed. But they also commit to doing their own inner work. They don't only look at those inner barriers, but they're also willing to reflect honestly on how they show up in the relationship and ask, for example, how can I be more present? How can I be more generous? How can I be more open? How can I bring kindness, curiosity, and care even on the hard days? Love, it doesn't only grow in the grand gestures, but it grows in the small daily choices we make to connect and to listen and to give. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. Relationships can sometimes get tangled in routines and roles or expectations. I think many of us will agree to this. But Rumi reminds us, come back to what you really love. What is it that I love about my partner? What, because what we focus on, it will expand. So instead of only focusing on what is wrong or what we would like to have changed, we can look at at what it is that we really love about our partner. What do I love about my partner? What do I love about the life that we're building together? So what quietly calls you forward in this relationship? Let yourself linger in that and follow that. It will guide you. So let's all take a deep breath and ask ourselves this question. What is one small step I can take today? One choice, one conversation, one moment of courage. What is one small brave step I can take today? Not 10 steps, but just one. Because meaningful change, it doesn't require perfection, but it starts with a single act of courage or care. And the final quote I wanted to share: lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. So this final quote, it's such a beautiful reminder. Love is not a destination, but it's something we discover and keep rediscovering within ourselves and between us. The love we long for might already be here, like the sun. It's waiting to be noticed and nurtured and received. Thank you all for listening to this webinar today. I wish you all the most sunlit, wholeheartedly marriage or partnership. Thank you so much for listening and for doing the inner work that love truly asks of us. Thank you.